Well, hello everyone, and welcome to tonight's edition of Literary Nights with Unsolicited Press. Before we begin, I want to remind everyone to smash the like button from wherever you're watching, and also like and subscribe from wherever you're watching. So this way you will always be apprised to whenever we come on with a show, which comes on every other Wednesday. Tonight we have two wonderful writers who are joining us, also newly published by Unsolicited Press. Joining us tonight is Jane Carlsen and Mariana Villanueva. I hope I pronounced that correctly.
Yeah.
Thank you, ladies, for joining us, and thank you all out there in on YouTube and on Instagram for joining us. I want to remind everyone that if you have questions for the author or if you want to say something during the reading, if you comment in the comment space from wherever you're watching or ask a question, we'll be able to see it in real time. So, welcome, Jane and Marianne. We are going to go alphabetical order. So, when you begin, tell us a little bit about your book, what you're going to read, and then we'll move on to the next writer. And then when we're all done with the readings, we'll have a Q&A and talk about the writing life. So, Jane, alphabetical order, you're first.
Hi, I'll be reading from the beginning of my novel, Sweet Constance, so right from the start. This story is really about a forest and the people attached to it. So I will start with chapter 1. Connie Sweet lay with her head in the weeds and her ear to the ground. Damp spread like a rumor from the sleeping bag she was wrapped in all the way to her bones, cold. But her head didn't hurt as long as she didn't move. She pressed her ear into the rotting mulch of leaves and straw. Beneath the ground, a constant susurration indicated small, secret movement. But when she slapped the earth, sudden effervescence followed. Then silence for a moment, before the mysterious static began again, creeping upwards. She dug her hand into the cold soil and clawed out a fistful of worms. Pink and intricately plaited, they entwined one another, moving slowly, exuding a glistening goo that carried eggs and sperm. Or they would have if Connie had not disturbed them. Now in her palm, they writhed at the shock of sunlight and the fearsome nothingness of air. They moved into her unyielding fingers, finding their way to the dark crevices between, but stuck there, still tethered to one another. Sweet Constance! She was startled to see shiny work boots 3 feet from her nose. Dew beaded their oiled surface. They were strangely clean, considering the season, and no one called her Constance. She closed her eyes and curled her fist around the handful of dirt. Strong fingers grasped her shoulder and shook her. She remembered she was too thin. She shrugged the hand away and sat up quickly. Miss Sweet, are you all right? Everyone calls me Connie. Her body awoke when the sleeping bag fell away. She was cold. Her head hurt. She hugged herself. I thought you'd fainted. Connie's eyes were level with the large man's thighs. His jeans were stiff and midnight blue, and she did not look beyond them. People don't faint wrapped in a blanket. As long as you're okay. He squatted and peered at her with blue eyes, his tanned face very near her own. She stared back to demonstrate her level gaze. He was assessing her, going through some medical checklist in his mind. She didn't wipe the mud from her cheeks. She concentrated on the moving soil in her grasp. As she waited, the man's kind expression shifted from concern to humor, but still she wouldn't look away, not first. The fine wrinkles around his eyes gathered as he began to smile, but the flesh of his brow remained heavy. Connie's forehead contracted too, instinctively mirroring. Caught in his gaze, she felt a sudden panic, and she blinked to come back to herself. I was listening to worms. She spoke with exaggerated authority to demonstrate her coherent speech. He rocked back on his heels and stood. You can hear worms? Not anymore. She had to squint into the sky now that he was standing. He shifted to block the sun. Connie scrambled to her feet. One worm oozed from between her knuckles and plopped to the ground. You scared them away. Well, I'm sorry. He took a step back, but I was really afraid there was something wrong. Nothing that won't be fixed by you leaving. She returned the teeming fistful of dirt to the earth. and pulled the mulch over like a blanket. When she stood up, the man was already walking away. She watched him grow smaller as he trudged up the grassy hill. Now the worms could relax, and she imagined them traveling down the length of each other, skin to skin, the goo drying slowly, rolling from their bodies like a silk stocking from a leg, becoming, once the worms had finally reached the end of one another, a tiny pearl, translucent and golden, an egg. That morning, in the middle of a reluctant spring, sunlight finally poured from the sky, drenching the oaks right down to the ground. Connie Sweet had laid in bed, trying to recall a myth, some story of sacrifice in pursuit of honey. The problem was the honey could not come into the world until the world turned upside down. Well, now the world had turned upside down. Outside Connie's window, honeyed light made the turgid pillows of moss blaze. Sunlight poured down and plants ate it up. Appetite. It was disgusting. Entitled. She had rolled out of bed in pieces, first her feet, then her legs. When her hips were almost falling off the edge of the mattress, she heaved herself to standing. The life force was a dreadful, importunate thing. It fueled cancer and made the headless chicken run. It ate its mate. She clung to the railings as she went downstairs, her ankles and knees stiff in the morning. Since Carrie's death, Connie's friend Ellen had come almost every morning, bringing blocks of cheese and bags of apples, frozen casseroles, and outrageous stories. Ellen would watch Connie eat before herding her outside to walk the roads around their rural neighborhood. But that morning, Ellen's fierce ministrations were claimed by a wayward nephew, arriving later in the day from some unsuitable home in Seattle. Connie had not paid attention to the details. Sunlight filtered through the trees and flooded Connie's kitchen with a hallucinatory effect, heightened by the wine she had drunk the night before, as she sat on her porch, watching the moon cross a tattered sky. Now the clouds were gone, the sun triumphant, and steam rose from the damp ground. Pressure built, seeds cracked, buds broke, and insects split cocoons. The grass was now ankle high, and the Indian plum leaned into the house, heavy with fine white blossoms, weighted with rain. Without Ellen there to manage her, Connie felt like a truant. She had her coffee standing up, and then she had dragged the old sleeping bag all the way out to the neglected vegetable garden, where she lay down to listen to the unimaginable population of worms. 1,000,000 bodies mated, 1,000,000 mouths consumed. But the constant permeating sound they made probably came from transit, like the oceanic roar of the distant freeway. Neither freeway nor worms had been audible when Connie and her ex-husband Mike bought their little farm 25 years earlier. Then the small mountain homes of her neighborhood had little value. The place was too steep and rocky for crops and required a slow, winding drive to stores. Hermits, survivalists, and back-to-the-landers found common ground, sharing tractors and post-hole diggers. They thought they could keep it that way. Land use laws passed in 1973 had established rural zones to protect the agricultural and forest lands. But at the foot of the mountain, where the soil was rich and deep, houses sprouted from oat fields, and small parking lots crusted over the wetlands near the freeway. That was the life force again, and people were pushed up the mountain seeking nature or solitude or the sense of dominance that comes from a big house with a 100-mile view. Connie and some neighbors had made a pamphlet for the newcomers. They illustrated poison oak and listed the benefits of nettles. They described watersheds and aquifers and the dangers of large manure piles. A literary neighbor wrote an oddly sexy poem about the soil as a living skin, but no one had the heart to exclude it. Connie still had some of those pamphlets around somewhere, and they shamed her. That effort had also been fueled by the life force, like the cars they drove, the orchards they planted, and the children they had. Summers got hotter, vineyards crept up the mountainside, and California vintners began to buy land in Oregon. People started moving to Connie's neighborhood from Palo Alto or Chicago or Beaverton. These new people could purchase all the equipment they needed. There was no reason to visit or receive. They bulldozed the ferns and the thimbleberry, the nettles and the red flowering currant. Homesteads became estates, tennis courts, equestrian arenas. Connie's newest neighbors arrived from France and South Africa, Minnesota and Texas. There was no point in giving them a pamphlet about the forest because they were going to raise it with a team of professionals and a viticulturist from Napa. Not only would they drive heavy equipment over the earth's tender flesh, they would dynamite the rocks beneath. No one could make a pamphlet now. The poems would be violent and pornographic. I hear you've been alienating the neighbors. Ellen set a bag on the counter and a couple apples rolled out. Cheese. She waved a large block of cheddar at Connie. It looked appropriate in Ellen's big hand, but Connie knew it would harden and mold in the refrigerator until she threw it away. Some almond butter, too. This is healthy food that you don't have to prepare. Thanks. I had to go to the store anyway to stock up for Dylan. Ellen served them each a cup of tea and sat down. Look at me, taking care of everyone. She shook her head, and her coarse dark hair, frosted with silver, bounced against the restraint of the red knit cap she wore all winter. That man called me Sweet Constance. Ha! Ellen blew on her tea. He thought that bothered you. Your name's listed that way on all the paperwork. He felt bad. You two are best friends? He's my nearest neighbor. Ellen polished one of the apples she'd bought and bit into it. And he's got a Ford pickup from the 60s. I always wanted an old pickup. He's from Texas. Nice people can come from Texas. But Connie didn't think so. Connie had sold 30 acres of steep forest and pasture to Otto Walter, who came from Texas, although he didn't have a Texan accent, so maybe he came from somewhere else first. Her timing was lucky, people said. The sale of the forest allowed Connie to be independent, a status she considered with bitter irony, along with the luck of her timing. In the last year, life itself had been relentless in establishing Connie's independence, beginning with her daughter Carrie's death of leukemia, 25 years old. Through the horror of the illness, Connie and her husband Mike found they could not face one another, as though in having and losing Carrie, they were complicit in a crime. The divorce was quickly finished. Neither had much to say beyond "I'm sorry." Ellen sighed dramatically and let her long, suffering gaze rest on Connie, who still slumped over her empty coffee cup. Connie could swear the gaze had actual weight, and she turned away. Come on, Ellen pushed the teacup away and stood near the door. There's no place to walk. Despite herself, Connie's eyes filled with tears. The forest is gone. It's not gone. You could still walk there if you were nice and made friends with Otto. The man's face had been too close to her own. She had smelled coffee on his breath. Aren't you supposed to be taking care of your nephew? He sleeps until noon. Anyway, you're going to take charge of him. We have to talk about that. Put on your shoes. Ellen charged ahead.
I think you froze, Jane. Jane, I think you froze. Whoops. Oh. She's going to come back.
Now help with the boy was impossible, improper even, and Ellen ought to know that. Connie understood that cancer was one of life's random tragedies. Theoretically, it could happen to anyone, but it didn't happen to anyone. It happened to Carrie, and such a failure marked you. It wasn't like Connie thought she was cursed, but she was done with children. Come on, Ellen urged, turning to walk backwards so she could face Connie. It's the aerobic exercise that helps the mood. It's not going to work if you mope along like that. A cold wind from the west pulled at their hair and jackets. It feels like February. Connie jogged to catch up, and Ellen turned to walk shoulder to shoulder. You know I can't take care of a child, Ellen said more reasonably. In all the time Connie had known her, Ellen had never even cared for a pet. I already told him he'd be paid $15 an hour as your farm and environmental assistant. It's the only way I got him to agree to come. I'll pay him, and you'll work him so hard he'll come home and fall right to sleep. We all win. He's what, around 8? That's too young. He's 15, Connie. You forget how fast other people's kids grow up. I'm going to pay him. You just have to have him fill out those plant surveys you have the kids do. Keep him busy in the healthful outdoors. I quit. I don't teach anymore. My sister has gone off the rails, Ellen was stern. If Dylan doesn't come here, he'll end up in the streets or the foster system. We really don't have a choice. We? Connie felt a rising panic. What about school? You're going to drive him to town every morning? Pick him up in the afternoon? Ellen had her own insurance brokerage, and she worked hard, but strictly on her own schedule. She discarded Connie's concern with a wave of her hand. He hasn't been to school regularly for years. They move too often for anyone to keep track of him. You can figure out where he is with his education, maybe tutor him a little. Next fall, we'll get him enrolled somewhere. Ellen, he won't give you any trouble, Ellen interrupted. There, look, a pileated woodpecker. They stopped at the base of a rotting oak. The top had been whittled to an improbable splinter, and the woodpecker drilled like crazy, sifting a cloud of sawdust over the women's heads and shoulders. Connie looked up as directed. For 25 years, the natural world had been a bottomless source of inspiration. Now she couldn't remember why she had ever been interested. You and Dylan will get on fine, Ellen said, walking on. And now that's settled, I can tell you the gossip. Can we slow down? No, the exercise is good for depression. Just listen. The new guy is kind of appealing. I don't want to know anything about him. But Connie was curious. Ellen hardly ever found people appealing. Ellen dismissed Connie's objection with a shake of her head. Otto came down to your place because he wanted to invite you to a little gathering he hosted to meet the neighbors. Then I'm glad I sent him away. We told him you were grieving. He doesn't hold it against you. It was a funny party. He was all prepared to give us a presentation on viticulture if we'd let him. He had charts and soil tests tacked up on the walls. He's sort of cute and innocent. She turned and frowned at Connie. I'm afraid your rudeness scarred him. But Annabelle's ready to offer comfort. Ellen placed her hands on her broad hips and tossed her head. The beat-up cap bounced right off, and she picked it up and twirled it. She was trussed up in tight jeans and cowboy boots, Ellen said over her shoulder. Otto's sparing no expense, which excited Annabelle, and she started unbuttoning her blouse, one sneaky button at a time. Ellen smashed her hat back on and undid the buttons of her own plaid shirt, revealing an ancient AC/DC t-shirt splashed with bleach. She looked down at herself in mock disappointment. Are you making that up? Connie stuffed her hands in her pockets. Are you trying to distract me with local color? I'm not even exaggerating, but you should have seen it yourself. Ellen rebuttoned her shirt. Then you wouldn't have to rely on me. By the time the party ended, you could see right down her blouse to her perfect breasts, barely covered by her leopard print fuchsia laced bra. You're definitely making that up. Annabelle's going to help him with his landscaping. What's there to landscape? Zoning laws did not allow a dwelling on the land. That had been Connie's consolation when she sold. She couldn't really have a neighbor up there. Oh, Ellen waved her hand vaguely. You know how it is when folks move in. Lots of unrealistic plans. Annabelle will help him sort it out. Thank you.
Wonderful, wonderful story. So what's the title of the book again?
It's called, well, you can't really see it on my little phone.
Sweet Constance. All right. I have a ton of questions, but we will wait until after Marianne Villanueva reads from her wonderful book.
Okay, so I'm reading a short story. It's so interesting because it's set in the far future and it's dystopian and everything's different. So it's kind of like what would happen if your main character lived in the future, I guess.
What is the name of your book? What is the name of your book?
It's Residents of the Deep.
Oh, nice. All right.
It's speculative fiction.
Okay.
So I'm going to read probably just half of a short story called Thing. Okay. That one's name is Plankton, and this one is Shrimp. The captain's name is Caesar. The captain's name is a real name, the only real name among us. My name is Darkness. That's because of the color of my skin. Or maybe it's because I was born in the year when the nights became longer, the year the electricity disappeared, the year that air turned brown and heavy and the sun dipped closer to us, when we forgot about almost everything except how to survive. Caesar says he thinks I should have been called Angel. What's an angel? I ask. A beautiful creature with wings, he says. I can't imagine it. Like birds? I ask. Yes, Caesar says. Our house is made out of earth and water. Caesar taught us how. There is never any change in the weather. I sometimes forget what green looks like. The four of us are in charge of the mutant pig zoo. We feed the animals, clean their pens, that kind of thing. Our pigs are the results of experiments. They have all kinds of weird traits. One's mouth was in the middle of its forehead. Another had 6 legs. Another stared skyward, unable to bend its neck. Still another had the body of a snake and 3 noses. Each of the not rights was unique and completely different from the others. The mouth in the forehead pig was mine. I named it Ed. I remember that name from somewhere. I'm not sure where. When it cried, white foam spilled out of its mouth. The red of the pupils was astonishing, like fire. I never got tired of looking at it. It lasted longer than the others. I even let myself hope that it would happen differently, but one day its bristles started to fall out, big black clumps all over the pen. After that, it was just days. But why should a pig cry? Shrimp said. What gives it the right? We pig tenders go about our work with cowls pulled forward, shielding our faces. The sun is too bright. It scalds everything. At least with a cowl, we still have faces. Caesar's cowl is always pulled forward, so I'm not really sure what he looks like. He has a problem with runny eyes, a side effect of the atmosphere, dry as dust. Every so often, he stops and wipes his cheeks. Caesar sometimes tells stories late at night if we can't sleep. He is old enough to remember a time when there were factories and pigs were processed night and day, when the smell of pig blood lingered over everything. He remembers a time when people ate every part of the pig, ears, eyes, even entrails. Pork fat was used in cakes and in bread. I try and imagine what a cake is. Caesar has to draw. We are lucky our pigs don't smell bad, Caesar says. The factories still cry out sometimes. When we hear the keening sound, we know it is a herd of ghost pigs running into walls and crying because they can never find their way out. They are inside people's heads, like the memories of old ways. And when people's heads get too full of memories, the first ones to tumble out are the pigs, running every which way and squealing. The pigs are bred for research. The founding fathers have found a way to breed out the pig smell. When the occasional mutant appears, no one in the city can stand to look. There's an abhorrence, a repulsion about things that are not physically perfect. Everyone in the city walks upright. Everyone is physically symmetrical. 2 arms, 2 legs, 2 ears, 2 eyes, 2 hands, 2 lungs. Sorry. Um, no one knows why, when a not right pig is born, the founding fathers don't kill it immediately. Caesar says that would have been the best solution. Instead, the founding fathers send the not rights far away to us. Caesar says we should be proud that we have been chosen. There's another reason the piggery is hundreds of miles from the city. It's not only the mutant pigs that repel, it's us, the pig keepers. I have no legs. They say my mother was very young, practically a child herself. My father was also her father, or something terrible. I can walk because the doctors took pity on me and made me legs. They are the color of gunmetal. They flash in the sun. I never tire of looking at them. Plankton doesn't have any lips. All he has are gums and teeth. You don't realize how much the lack of lips ruins a face until you've seen plankton. Shrimp has only one eye. The hollow where the other eye should have been is covered with shiny green scales. Shrimp likes to say that his mother ate a lot of fish when she was carrying him. She wouldn't listen when people told her that the appetite for fish would result in a baby who looked like a fish. It's a proven fact. I never knew either of my parents. I lived in a laboratory on the fifth floor of Lodestar 4, along with plankton and shrimp, for almost 12 years. In the beginning, there were more than 20 of us. We all had to begin each day by reciting the 5 precepts. Now I only remember the second. Once you've flown past the summit of your fears, nothing will seem impossible. There were many things we didn't know. We didn't know cold. We didn't know weather. We didn't know what was beyond the long hallway, each end of which was barred by heavy steel doors. Caesar came one day and collected the 3 of us. The rest, and there were still about 10 others. Who knows what happened to them? Who knows why he chose me and Plankton and Shrimp? I remember that the 3 of us, me and Plankton and Shrimp, wept in Caesar's truck. We were afraid of Caesar. We didn't know where we were going. We thought we were going to a warehouse, one of the dozens that lined the edge of the city. Instead, we came here. We become attached to our mutants. We can't help it. Shrimp has even begun to record the dates of their deaths, scratching with a sharp gray stone on the gate to the pens. The pigs don't live very long after they come to us. None of them even last longer than a year. One died after just a month. The food, maybe. Do pigs feel despair? How long do we have, Caesar? I asked one day. Caesar didn't answer right away. How long? I said again. I know we're not normal. We're like them. We have enough time, Caesar said. Stop talking. My head hurts.
I want to hear the rest of it.
I know.
We have time for a little bit more.
Okay, I'll read one page more. Okay. Another time I asked, will we explode, Caesar? Why? He said, why do you think that? I used to hear them say at the lab, antimatter. They would say that word and I would feel cold. What does it mean? It means, Caesar said, we are at the edge. We were at the edge. We are stable now. We have balanced the forces. I breathed deeply. Caesar sighed. The one that died fastest had 2 heads. Its heart was outside its body, pulsing just above its navel. We didn't find it until it had been dead for a few hours. I immediately suspected Plankton because that morning, when he came in for breakfast, there was blood on his boots, and there was something different about his face, a look. When we found the 2-headed pig, Shrimp curled up over it and howled. We were very afraid, not of the things outside waiting to kill us, but of the cruelty we saw in each other. In time, Caesar says, everything will vanish. We'll become molecules, spinning in the infinity of space. Caesar has been to school. I can tell from the words he uses. I want to ask, what is a molecule? What is infinity? What is space? How did Caesar learn? One day they sent us a new creature. It came in the back of a truck, locked in a steel cage. The driver was new. We asked him what had happened to the old driver, Aiken. Aiken sometimes brought us things from the city. Not this man. He shrugged and turned his head away, but not before we saw the look of disgust on his face. We didn't speak to him further. I was angry. It would have been nice to have something from the far away, some small thing, food, news, anything. The creature's skin was a strange color, yellow with very faint gray stripes. We had heard that there were 2 or 3 of these strangelings born every year, but we had never actually seen one until now.
Wonderful. Wonderful story. Oh my God, both of you ladies read such powerful things tonight. So we're gonna talk about our questions. Jane, what forest? Like, where is your story set, Sweet Constance?
It's set in the it's set in the Willamette Valley in Oregon. I lived for 30 years on a farm in Yamhill County, which is south of Portland by about 30 miles. And so it's not exactly like my farm, but it's in that area as it's changing from being just sort of rocky, not much used land to being popular with the wine industry as the wine industry was growing up in that area.
It kind of reminded me of A.S. Byatt's story. He's got a collection of short stories. It's about, I think the gin is in the title. Let me see if I can find it real fast. But there's a story in the end where there's dragons that come out. But the Gin and the Nightingale's Eye is a collection of short stories, and it reminded me a little bit about of that. So, how did you get inspired? Like, what inspired you to write about Constance Sweet?
Well, it's really about home and who home belongs to. It's about this forest as it's going through land change. So Connie's had to sell the land and it's bought and is going to be developed into a vineyard. She knew that when she sold it, but still, as she watches the whole logging and everything going on, she recognizes that the place meant more to her than she realized. When I was growing up, I lived in a suburb of Portland, but next door to me was a vacant land, which was unusual at the time. So from the time I was like 4 to 17, when I went off to college, I spent all my time there and considered it my home. But of course, I had no control over it, and it was always on the verge of development. And so this idea that home, any place, is the home to many creatures, many people and animals, and yet, even though that's such an existential idea, home, it's usually only under the control of one person, often a person who doesn't know the place very well, which is the case in this story. So yeah, thinking about home and ownership and how we make decisions about land.
Well, that's a very nice segue into Marianne's piece because her piece is about home. For Shrimp and the narrator, that's their home. They don't know any other home other than tending the mutant pigs. And I'm very intrigued about how you came up with the idea of writing such a dystopian story because it's in a faraway land. Is it set on Earth anywhere or Earth in the future? Tell us more about your story and also more about how it goes.
Oh, okay. So this was the first story I wrote that was sort of speculative fiction because all the stories I used to write were about sad suburban wives. I was known as the Queen of Sad. And so I had sort of like, I need to branch out from Queen of Sad. So I was reading a New Yorker article about pigs that were used in experiments. So I'm not that imaginative actually. So and it had a picture, a line drawing of a pig that had no neck and was sort of like looking up at the sky the whole time and had no mouth either. And anyway, so it was a nonfiction piece. And I sort of related to the idea that there are expectations about people's looks. Like we are all in a hierarchy, and the top are like the beautiful people, and the lowest hierarchy are people who, I don't know, are missing things. So I started from there, and it sort of just I just sort of was, oh yeah, you know what it was? My son had gone away to college, and I had gone to his room and looked at his books, and they were like mostly science fiction. So I started to read, and I thought, oh, this sounds like fun. I should try it. So that's how it started.
But while we're talking about the characters, they are actually in their home as pig tenders. But more than that, even though they're at the lowest rung of the hierarchy, they're still struggling for their humanity, you know.
Yes,
And in
yes,
Sweet Constance, we have Sweet Constance who can listen and hear worms. So in a way, both of your stories have
yeah.
explored some of the same things. So Jane, where did you get the idea of listening and hearing worms?
Well, you can hear the worms, I mean, from my farm. That when I started using a lot of manure, and I never realized you could, but when there's a lot of mulch and stuff on there in spring and early spring, when they get active, you can actually hear them moving around. And when I first went out there, I wasn't sure what I heard, but then you could tell because when you hit the soil, they would be quiet. So it's like something moving in there, and then realize, oh, it's just this enormous population of earthworms.
Interesting. Um, Well, I mean, both of these stories are really blown. So let's talk about. I mean, have blown me out of the water. I'm very intrigued. So let's talk a little bit about the writing process. You talked about what inspired it, but what is your writing process? Do each of you keep a diary? Do you write every day? And I guess we'll go in alphabetical order. Jane and then Marianne. Tell us about your writing process.
When I'm working on something, I write every day, good, bad, however it goes, I crank it out. I do tons and tons and tons of rewriting. So for me, writing is very much a discovery. So I have to sit down every day and I pour it out and then sort of see what I have and shape it later. So I don't really know what's going to happen exactly. I have an idea, and and I don't wait around for inspiration. I spend a lot of time just writing and then redoing it.
So, are you a pantser, or an outliner?
No, pantser for sure. Yeah, I fly by the seat of my pants. No, an outline. If I had an outline, I'm sure I would immediately veer away from it. Yeah.
And Marianne, what is your process? Do you write every day? Are you inspired every day, or do you just
I
sit down and do the work? What is your process?
I do write every day. I write for hours, but not on one thing. Like my mind is constantly moving to different subjects. So I do write every day, but it's not just on one thing. So I have gazillion stories that I started, and I have faith that I will finish them one day. But the finishing of the story for me depends purely on emotion, because each of my stories was born out of a particular emotion, and this story was born out of annoyance, I guess, at someone who was always around and annoying me. So I did consciously, for the first time, lock myself into the bedroom and wrote. So I mean, like, I can't even imagine how that plot occurred to me. I just kept going because I was so annoyed. Yeah.
Were you annoyed by someone in your house, or were you annoyed by the article, or were
No,
you annoyed by life in general?
someone in the house, and I physically, this was the first time I actually thought to myself, no, I want to be left alone. And when I'm left alone, the minute I'm left alone and I'm sure I'm alone, I start writing. It's like, I'm like, I guess Pavlov's dog. Put the woman alone and then she starts. It's just, I don't know, it's automatic for me.
So, Jane, when you said that you just spill things out, how do you ever? What do you do when you hit a block? When do you ever hit a block? And if you do, what happens when you hit that block?
You know,
Writer's block.
yeah, I don't exactly. I tried this novel, with one of those, write the whole novel like I did the whole draft. with just cranking it out, so I had expectations of how many words I was going to write 800 words a day. So then it was funny because I had a kind of plan of where I thought the story was going. And then I hit a day where I was kind of bored, and that's a really bad sign. And so then instead of like letting it block, then because I do so much rewriting, the stakes are low. So I just told myself, write anything, right? Whatever it is that keeps your interest, you can always throw it out again tomorrow. And it's funny because then this whole new character that I had not envisioned for the novel, who ended up being crucial, came in at that moment. Was when I was thinking about it. So so I just keep cranking it out, and if I have block, I just go through it, because every day I might just throw it out the next day anyway. So I always keep the stakes kind of low that way.
So who was the character that came in that you did not envision? And
was
it the guy?
No, it's Dylan. It's this nephew, and he ends up being absolutely crucial to the whole story. It would be a completely other book without him. So that was what was funny. I had not envisioned the teenager, but he's central to the book.
So did you start off, it's a novel, so did you start off with character Bibles? Like, talk about how you fully formed your characters, or was that totally a pantser thing rather than a...
It's a pantser thing for me. I mean, so I start off with the character, and I know what they're going to be, and she's going to have this friend, and obviously I've got people that I sort of know that are kind of in mind. But I do spend so much time rewriting as I think about the themes more. The characters develop over the course of the novel. I come to understand them better and better over the course of the novel. So no, I don't really know them very well when I start out, and they develop as I'm writing and as I begin to understand the story. For me, it almost, what Michelangelo say about sculpture, that, he feels like, no, the sculpture is already in the marble and I'm just taking away the excess. And in some ways,
I think that was Michelangelo who said that.
Yeah. Yeah.
He just frees the artwork from the sculpture, from the marble.
And in some ways I feel that way too, because as I start to write, I end up with all this stuff, and then I see, oh, this is meaningful to me. This is meaningful to me. This is meaningful to me. And then it's sort of taking away the other stuff and building up the things that feel meaningful and important to me. But I never really know what's going to happen. I didn't know how this book was going to turn out. There's this one big question, which I won't say. I really didn't know what the answer to the question was going to be until pretty much the end.
Wow, that's really brave to do it that way. Yeah. And Marianne, tell me about your whole book. Is your whole book dystopian, in the future, short stories, or is it just that one?
I would say most of it is fantasy and speculative fiction, and the rest are very realistic stories with maybe a twist, but really realistic. So it's a blend.
Well, so are they linked by theme? Like, how did you put these particular stories together?
I was thinking at first that I would have a collection that was all speculative fiction and take out all the traditional stories. But after I'd been sending the book out for 2 years, I decided that it was really not serving my best interest just to keep one book speculative fiction and the other traditional stories. I felt I might not get another book contract, so why not just throw the two together and see what happens? So I did, and then and then Unsolicited Press sent me an email, and I thought it was spam. I mean, it was like, what? Like, you actually want this crazy collection that's like outer space and then 16th century? What? But so I guess that was the right decision, though, to mix.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, both of the works that you read are very compelling. Excuse me. Just got a tickle in my throat. Sorry about that. So let's talk a little bit about sending it out. I know it took 80 rejections for my first book to find a home at Unsolicited Press. So do you want to each talk about your process of submitting and finding a publisher?
Sure. I didn't count how many rejections, but I was right up there with you. And actually, you know, trying to find an agent and stuff. And then, and then somebody suggested that it might be easier with smaller presses even than agents, and especially, you know, as you get older and you don't have such a huge career in front of you. And so this is so similar to Marianne. Then I sent it. I think I must have heard from Unsolicited Press almost a year after I sent it. And you don't hear from anyone at all anymore. You just throw it off into the void. And so I had exactly the same reaction as you. It's like, is this spam? Is it real? Yeah. That's the least fun part of writing.
A lot of aspiring writers come back and watch the show. What are some messages or some advice that you have to people who are aspiring to have a published book? What do you want to tell them as writers are some of the things that worked for you? Whoever wants to go first.
Oh, okay. Should I just go first? So what will inspire younger writers? I think first of all, it really helps to have someone you hate saying you cannot be a writer. Because after you encounter that, nothing is the same. Like, yes, I can be a writer. So that was a big help for me. And then sending out, I sort of did what Jane did, just sort of like just sent out all over the place. I didn't have an agent, so I couldn't, approach the big publishers. But also with each rejection, I'm very slow in sending out. So because with each rejection, I change the manuscript. I keep changing. So let's say I get 50 rejections. The manuscript will change 50 times until I find the winning combination, which stopped 2 years ago, thank God, because that's a whole lot of like rewriting. Yeah. So that's how I how I yeah.
And Jane, what is your advice to aspiring writers?
Well, I think publication it seems to me it's so arbitrary. It's very hard to do the research to try to find out who wants your stuff. It's really, hard to figure out if you're sending it to the right places. It seems to me like under any circumstances, it's just this huge amount of luck. So for me, I know it was important. I had to sort of sit down with myself and saying, well, okay, how would you feel if you never got anything published? Would you feel like you've wasted your time? And I thought about it and I thought, no, I'm writing for my own reasons. I'm exploring these ideas. They're meaningful to me. Obviously, when we write, it's communication and we want to share it. And that's why we do it. And yet, coming to that decision, no, I get what I want out of the process. And that's enough for me. And then that made it so then the rest is kind of gravy. I mean, obviously I really did want to publish it and was trying hard, but there's no guarantee. It's such a crapshoot that I do think it's important that everybody writing be getting a lot of satisfaction out of it even without the publication.
Yeah, that's very wise, and that makes a lot of sense. You write what makes you happy, pretty much. So, and our final question is, what are you working on now? Are you working on a new novel? Are you working on another collection of stories, or a novel? So who, Marianne, do you want to talk about this? Because you said you write every day.
Yeah, I mean, I'm working on two novels because I get bored easily, so I keep switching back and forth, but they're both historical fiction. One is set in the 16th century because I'm stupid, and the other one is set in World War II also, but not as stupid. So the 16th century started with Magellan. That's where I started. And it's been like 10 years and I keep changing it because I keep getting rejected. So right now it's like 63,000 words, and I'm just gonna keep going because until someone accepts it, I'm just gonna keep writing it. And yeah, likely no one will publish 16th century. I had an agent. She was so horrified when she heard I was writing about the 16th century. She goes, "No one wants to publish a book from an unknown about the 16th century." So I should have listened, I should have, because after I finished the book, it's almost finished. I realized she's right. So I got an idea that instead of calling it a novel, I would call it a collection of linked stories set in the 16th century, but that's just a minor detail. It's really a collection of linked stories. And I've been sending out the chapters like standalones, and they're all getting published. So when they're together, no one wants it. But when I call them, this is a story, which happens to be in this, you know, they keep getting published. So who knows? Yep.
Well, I think you just have to keep going because you have to write what makes you happy, as we
Oh yeah.
established just a few minutes ago.
Yes. Yes, I agree.
And Jane, what are you working on now?
Well, I just finished another novel, and Unsolicited Press is going to publish that in 27. So that's great.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so right now I'm kind of in between. There's the launch of Sweet Constance right now, and I just got that one done. And I've been working on some essays, sort of nature essays, and short pieces like that. But actually I've been thinking in September I'm going to get through the launch and stuff, but I really want to write another novel. I love writing novels. I love the characters, you get so involved with them, and it's this whole world you get to go in and think about. And so no, I've been sort of stewing about what the next novel will be about. And I want to start that in September, but I'm still not sure.
Since you sort of grew up on a farm, I'm wondering if you're writing any essays about what the farmers are going through with the tariffs or current events related to farmers and not having enough workers to pick their heart to harvest their stuff. I was wondering if you were writing any essays or any creative nonfiction about that.
No, I hadn't been about the recent things. And most of my writing, it's a little bit more nature than agricultural. Um,
Uh huh.
so it's a little bit more about habitat loss, and also the interface of sort of urban and nature things is kind of more my thing. Those would be really interesting questions. It's always hard, I think, or it's because I'm so slow, hard to write about current events. You start with something current and it's old news by the time you get there. And I think we're right now in the middle of some big changes. It's hard to know where they're going to go.
Well, it's good that do either of you keep journals? Do you keep a daily journal or do you keep journals of images or anything?
I do. I mean, I've kept a journal since I was 16, but it has changed over the years. When I look at 10 or 20 years ago, my journal entries could be standalone short stories. They go on for pages and pages, and I write by hand. So I'm like, wow. I just looked at them recently and I was like, wowie, 500,000 words. But lately, okay, so this is what happened to me. I got a divorce, and then I could spend all my time writing. So my journal entries now are like 2 sentences. I mean, I have no idea. I mean, they're nothing. You look at them and it's like, can I get a story out? No. Okay. They say things like, did the laundry in one day, something like that. Yeah.
I think it's great. I mean, writing is writing, so keeping a journal, I think, is really important. You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
well, we've reached the end of this hour. It flew by. I really enjoyed hearing both of your works. Hold up your books again so that the people who are watching know these books are
And
available at Unsolicited Press and where all good books are sold. We hope you will buy these books. And thank you so much for joining, everyone. Good night. And oh, wait a minute, I forgot. Our next streamed reading is set to take place on August 20th. Same time, 8:30 p.m. Eastern Time and 5:30 p.m. Pacific Time. So I want to say same bat channel and same bat time. See you all next time, everyone, and thank you all out there who listened tonight. We hope you smash the like button and subscribe and come back next week. I mean, in 2 weeks.
thanks.